morning, sir. Welcome.
Hi, Jack. Nice to see you.
Jack, have you met the rest of our new, you met Jay? Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot on our plate today. We'd like to be out of here by 3 o'clock. So.
I have a doctor's appointment.
Perfect timing. All right, 2:30 then. So Beverly, you want to do roll call and then we'll begin?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Chairman French.
Here.
Ms. Stone. Present. Mr. Broker. Mr. Dawson.
Here.
Mr. Dorrance.
Here.
Mr. LaPackett.
Yeah.
Mr. Holmes.
Here.
Mr. Meganoff.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome to our last meeting of the year. Fiscal year. The last meeting for us, and I can say for myself, this has been probably a year we don't want to repeat too often. But I think it's ended well, as could be expected. I think that Cat buckled down. If we think back to before Christmas, we were, I think, a sinking ship and we were deep in the weeds. We managed, barring any unforeseen surprises, to turn the ship around, and we're going to finish in black ink. So I think that the CAT staff gets a round of applause for the record. However, it is also a bittersweet day because we have two board members who have been with us for a long time. So we're going to roll off the board into peaceful retirement.
Yeah, right. Try again.
That's hopeful.
So we'll miss both James and Helen. I think they've been great board members. James has always been slow and steady and a quiet voice of reason. And Helen is just the opposite. She's quick to express her feelings and say what you think.
And
so
unreasonable?
No, just different than James. So we'll miss both of you, and again, thanks for all your service. Okay, so with that in mind, let's approve the minutes first. So we need a motion to.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So there we go.
Do you want to do the second stats?
Yeah, I'm just checking them off so you don't have to remind me of that. So we also have the second set of minutes for the second session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we're to the presentation part. So what do you think, Curtis? 2 or 3 hours? Or?
I don't think so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first presentation is our federal legislative update from Squire, Patton, Boggs, and I'd like to present Mr. Jack Kingston, who will do the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Okay, everybody look at Bill because that's where we're going to be.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do we have a?
I can punch for you.
Okay. Well, so I'm Jack Kingston. I have the honor of representing you guys in Washington, D.C. with Squire, Patton, Boggs. We're the 8th largest law firm in the world and probably the 2nd or 3rd largest lobbying shop in Washington, D.C. And I also had the honor of working with you guys in my previous life at the U.S. Congress and got to know Cat very well. And have continued in my new role to try to be part of Cat's team to make transportation more efficient and more effective in Chatham County. And I think you're moving in the right direction and feel like we've been part of it. Now switching my head to be the green eye shades, okay, we pay you guys a lot of money, what have you done for us? And to that degree, I can proudly report that we've been part of a team that has brought in, during our watch, $4.8 million. Now, I always said to my 4 children that when you win everybody on the team has a good game. So I would be overclaiming if I said, okay, it's because of us, but I can promise you with the toughest scrutiny, we were absolutely part of the team that brought in this money. And having been an elected official, I know that if you can't look a crowd full of angry constituents in the eye and say, this is why, then we're not doing our job. So I will walk through that, and if we can click that. The first year, we came on in late 2015 and did a deep dive in terms of what your priorities are, what your options are, what your challenges are. And I'll go through any of these that you want to, but probably one of the things that I wanted to say in terms of cultivating relationships with members of Congress, the chairman of the Transportation Committee is a good friend of mine. Elaine Chao, now the Secretary of Transportation, is an old business acquaintance of mine. I knew her when she was Secretary of Labor. At that time, she stole from me our Chief of Staff, Adam Sullivan. I was able to steal him back, and now she has reclaimed him. And I saw her last week, and she said she's looking forward to Adam Sullivan coming back. He's going to be the number 3 person at DOT. The importance of that to you is that here's a guy who knows CAT. He has dealt with CAT issues, and one more name for us to call when we have problems. Next slide. We've worked through, again, what are some of these priorities? What are narrowing it down to, okay, what kind of money is the federal government doing grants for? Where is that money? And can we tailor, not because, okay, this money's free, we want to go after it, but this money is out there. Is it close to our objectives? Will it help us fill our objectives? We have a good relationship with our Georgia delegation, all members of the Georgia delegation, but obviously the key members to you would be Johnny Isaacson, David Perdue, and Buddy Carter. Now, you all have good relationships with them. So I'm not going to say that's because of us, but I can promise you we keep very close relationships with them on an ongoing basis. And 2 weeks ago when you guys were in town, the question came up about them writing letters of support for your new grant that you're trying to get $3.6 million for. Every single one of them said, yeah, no problem, yes, no problem. I would like to say it's because that Curtis was smart enough to give them an old picture of CAT. It's from, what was that, 1890-ish?
Yes, the rail
whatever.
car.
But sometimes those momentums really mean something. I had a picture of a modern CAT bus in my office, and there are a lot of people competing for the attention of the United States senators and congressmen, and just that little subtle reminder that, hey, CAT's out there, it's an old system. Now, before we came on board, you guys had already applied for a $700,000 grant for ferries, and we were able to find out that, okay, that's work in process. We talked to the acting FTA administrator about it and helped push that one over the line. So the first win on the board that we did together was the $713,000. The next slide. This was one that we were involved with from the very, very inception, where we helped you put the grant together and brought in $1.6 million for your paratransit fleet. And that again, that was something that we were there the entire time walking it through. We went through several drafts and redrafts of the proposal. What we have found with grants, you got to put a square peg in a square hole. And so we were able to do that. Great insurance agent named Cliff McCurry. I don't know if he's in the room or anybody knows him, but we used to be friendly competitors, and he told me once something, and you don't even know this, Cliff. He said, if they want it blue, you sell them a blue policy. If they want it red, you sell them a red policy. And it's the same with the federal government. If they're saying this is the kind of grant we're looking for, if that's in our interest, that's the kind of grant we've got to ask for. And then you get that blue or the red policy, and that's very important with the federal government. But part of our job is to help you with those drafts and redrafts to make sure that we can get there. Next slide. This is an issue on orphan earmark funding. Now, I'm not sure how involved the Georgia Department of Transportation was with it, but this was a part of legislation that we found out that any unobligated money that had been out there for 10 years was up for grabs. And so we went through a list that was about that thick. We did it internally, and then we did it with CAT and identified money that had just not been spent in other parts of the state. And we talked to Buddy Carter's office about it, Chris Crawford, his chief of staff, and said, you know, if you don't have any problems not spending that money in Brunswick, we need to spend it here. And then working with Georgia DOT and CAT working with Georgia DOT, we were able to reclaim $1.2 million. Again, team effort. Don't want to say that it was all because of us, but I can absolutely tell you we did go through the list and identify as much of that money as possible. Next pot of money, there was the FTA was sitting on money of CATs. I'm not sure historically how long. Curtis, what had it been?
Years.
Yeah. Many years, and they would not release the money to you. And we got on the phone and working, our contacts got the money released. And so, you know, again, trying to work very closely with you. Now, where are we right now? 2 weeks ago, and we're next slide, please. We're going after this low or no admission bus grant, and we had decided, well, where is the hot spot that they want? You don't want to ask for $2 million; it might be too little. If you can ask for over 4, we decided that's getting into danger territory, and so coming up with 3.6, which is both a real number, but it was also one that fit their philosophy, and we feel that you have a very good chance of getting that. That was just submitted on the 22nd. We're doing letters of support with the delegation right now to make sure that we have that, and these grants go behind a dark curtain and you don't really know what's happening. You're pacing back and forth for several months, and then they announce it. But we do feel good about that. Other opportunities on the next slide. And we're not sure if you get the first one, the 3.6, you might not get one of these because they like to, you know, spread the money out. They've got transit systems obviously all over the country. We think for the bus and grant facilities, that first number, that we'd probably be asking for about $1.3 million. And it's possible that we get that. Excuse me, I'm not sure. We don't have that number yet. But it's not going to be as big as the 3.6. Then the ferry discretionary grant money, that's a lot smaller, but could be a couple of $100,000 that we can play in. And then this last one may or may not happen. I don't have any idea why they call it the sandbox, but it allows transit systems to pick and choose what they need. If you need to spend the money on paratransit, great. If you need it on parking, great. If you need it on new buses, great. But they say to the transit authorities, you guys come up with the ideas and then we'll consider it. So that is what we have been working on your behalf. We work also very closely with Mike Backer, your state lobbyist. When things come up, Mike will call us, text us any time of day, and that was one of the objectives that CAT wanted, was a seamless relationship between the state and the federal level. So that's my report, and be happy to answer any questions that you have. I will say this, I'm sorry that Helen is retiring. She's tough, taskmaster. She will call me and she says, Jack, now I went out on the limb for you. What have you done? What are you doing? What else is out there? But I think that each and every one of you have that right and obligation to call me anytime and raise Cain and ask tough questions and make sure, okay, we're all friends here. We're all in this together, but we got to answer to taxpayers, and unless we can answer the questions without reservation, then we're just wasting time and money. Pete?
I'm not going to ask a question, but I can tell you this. If we look at the history of how we've been getting money here for CAT for a number of years before they came along, Jack and his other teammates and all, there was nothing like this that ever happened before. So we can see that, that they have done a really good job. And I mention again for history because we were in bad shape a number of years ago because we didn't get the money from the government like we should have, and we had somebody else doing the lobbying, but it just didn't work out like it should have.
Well, I appreciate it.
Helen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you, and many of you know this, if it were not for Mr. Kingston, our former congressman, this building wouldn't be here. So, Jack, you've been a long-time friend to Cat, and appreciate all of your efforts. And we wouldn't be sitting in this facility if it had not been for Mr. Kingston.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm on the team, and you and Priscilla and Joe Murray Rivers would come to our office every. Brianna knows y'all had a desk, you had a place anytime you wanted to come. It was absolutely because of your hard work.
Yeah, and I would like to add the laudatory suggestions and the likes, and thank you for all your help with respect to this. Just in terms of, there's talk coming out of the administration about a huge push in infrastructure development and modernization and that sort of thing. And there's also a good bit of talk about privatization and the like, consistent with that. What does that mean for public transportation agencies like Chatham Area Transit? Do you have a sense on that, or you know where it's going?
No, it's a great question, Bill. I believe that one of the big pushes is going to be public-private partnerships, the P3s that you have looked at. I'm not sure where these things are right now locally, but I know that there is a push for P3s as being one way to fund things, and anything, frankly, from even a port dredging project to building stuff on airport. We're involved in LaGuardia's expansion, for example, and but I think it's always going to be the transit authorities who are doing the most locally are going to get the most out of the federal government. It really turns them on to see the initiative. But the Transportation Committee right now is looking at the federal aviation reauthorization bill and redoing that. That's sort of this week. There's some Coast Guard stuff, and then they're going to get really into infrastructure. And I think it's going to be viewed with all kinds of bipartisanship and great ideas, because there's just so many different things, so many different ways people are doing business these days.
But do you think there'll be, will public transportation receive, the same kind of interest, that we're looking at right now with, for instance, airports, ports, those kinds of things?
Yes, I think it will.
Okay.
And I was on a transportation seminar with some really smart people. Not sure how I slid in there, but one of them was a Harvard professor who said buses, regardless of what you say or hear, buses are the most efficient way to get people from point A to point B. And so I think there's always be an argument, maybe a subway is more sexy, but the truth is a bus is the meat and potatoes of transportation. So.
Okay, thanks.
On just a general grant question, the software we're talking about replacing, is that anything we can apply for this year?
What the chairman's referring to is we're looking at trying to get new software for a CAT ABL system, and obviously the federal government does have a sandbox grant where you can kind of pitch any idea.
Yes.
Beyond that, there's not specific grant opportunities that I'm aware of for that kind of technology. Sandbox is kind of like the innovative technology area.
Yeah, and they may or may not do a sandbox this year, but if they do, then I think the argument's there for it. It might be
the bus and bus facility grant, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, is an avenue for that as well. We have gone for buses predominantly with that grant, but that's certainly an avenue we can apply for. But as Jack indicated, if we do win the electric bus grant, it's kind of far-fetched we would win both. So it's kind of a wait-and-see game. Jack, I just want to quickly get your take on the water ferry grant. I know obviously we can't win all the grants, but with our area and our water ferries being kind of unique compared to other transit agencies in Georgia, do you see us having a good chance of winning that?
I do, and it kind of gets back to this other question that they are viewed as ferries are a little more sexy, and so the idea of them I think is there, but also everything that's going on Hutchinson Island really does merit the need, and now they have a really great track record. So I think you're in place for it. Grant stays in pretty close contact with Tim Drake and Carolina in our office on where these things are. And they do tend to evolve a little bit because new transportation secretary, new team getting in place, their philosophies are always going to be a little bit different.
If they do have a sandbox program this year, I mean, what kind of money?
It's not huge money. I'd say maybe a couple of $100,000. It's not big money at all.
Right.
So, but I, kind of like the idea behind it. Well, let's see what the transit companies think, and just look at it. But it would all depend on the budget and all the other factors. It's almost, I hate to say afterthought, but it is not the top priority.
We just need to tailor our request to be.
If they do it, now they may not. They may say we're not going to do those this year.
Yeah, said it was unclear.
Yeah.
Right. So last year we did applied for the Sandbox Mobility Grant, and we did not win. We did a debriefing with Jack and his team with the FTA, and they said we had a very strong application. I posed the question to the FTA. I thought it was ironic that the people who won the grant were all major agencies like LA Metro, Denver RTD. There was no smaller agencies that won. They said there was no coincidence, but I'm not sure. So this year, if they do it, we are going to submit an application and work with Jack's team to try to have another strong application.
Any other questions for Jack? Well, Jack, thanks very much for coming. It was a very good presentation.
Well, thanks.
And since Helen's rolling off the board, I'll have to say this in her place. But remember, you're only as good as what you did in the future, not what you did in the past.
It's always about
keep
tomorrow.
it coming.
It's always about tomorrow. I understand. And that 3.6 million, we're pushing hard on.
Now, thank you very much for all your help. I'm surprised you let that one slip, Helen. Okay, so next up is route redesign. Grant, we're looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So over the last year, we've had many discussions about redesigning our transit routes to better serve the community. And Curtis asked me to give a presentation today on what we've done to date and what we plan on doing over the next year as it relates to our redesign efforts. So just to recap, what have we already done? We've conducted an origin destination study to analyze third-party travel data in our region and evaluate whether our transit routes align with those travel patterns. We've installed automated passenger counters, or APCs, on several vehicles to capture stop-level ridership data. Last month, the board approved the purchase of transit planning software called Remix, which allows us to quickly evaluate financial and demographic impacts of our future route scenarios. And then the board has also been briefed on the trade-offs between the two primary and often competing goals of transit, which are ridership and coverage. So looking forward, there are a few tasks that we're going to hope to accomplish by November of this year. The first, we're going to take a deep dive into the origin destination study results to take a very close look at RS&H's Tier 1 recommendations, which focus on routes 100X, Route 20, and Route 11. basically we're going to determine whether we want to proceed with RSNH's recommendations or potentially do something different with those routes based on the data that we are continuing to collect. We're also going to take a close look at some of their Tier 2 recommendations as it relates to routes 12 and 10. RSNH mentioned that there's a significant opportunity to improve efficiencies along these two routes.
Just have a question.
Sure.
So if decisions are made about those routes, then you have to go through a public procedure to let people know?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, just
all major service changes, which are defined by a 25% or more change to the miles or the hours of the route, require an equity analysis, basically a Title VI analysis, and that's where you have to go through a series of public meetings, prepare data, which pretty much shows whether or not there's an adverse impact on low-income populations or minority populations.
And so, in your guesstimate, about how long does that take? So I'm just wondering, when we can expect changes.
So we're still working on the backwards calendar right now for November. Basically, we're going to have to decide over the next month what we're going to do with those routes in order to have enough time to complete the analysis and train the drivers and update the softwares and all that.
Right, and we still haven't gotten the full report from RSNH yet. They have
Right.
till June 30th to give that to us, so once we get that, we'll be able to deep dive into the actual numbers. A lot of times what you saw, there were graphs with lines and thick lines and bubbles, and we're waiting for the actual numbers.
I mean, even though I won't be here, it would be great, if the board members could be apprised when these changes actually kick in, so that if they receive phone calls or questions, they'll be able to intelligently answer.
Along the line, Helen's comments that she and Coach won't be here. We're going to be dumping some heavy decisions on 2 brand new board members with probably little or no background on all the prep work that's been going on. So one of the things that I think you should be looking at is some sort of presentation for them.
Orientation,
some
bring
kind of
them up to
orientation.
speed.
I don't know how much Jay might want this. I don't know how much of this he's seen as we've gone through it, but certainly the other 2, and for that matter, anybody that wants to participate, but maybe aside from our board, just as a orientation that any.
I've been working with the chairman. We're trying to plan a workshop.
We've sort of got July 7th targeted in as a workshop to go over this in more detail, as well as to bring the new board members on board.
What I was thinking about is the O&D study, as well as the presentation you made on ridership versus coverage.
Yes.
I mean, those kinds of things.
Yes.
That's a lot of information that they have no.
We're on the same page with that.
So I went over that first milestone. Also, by November, we think that we'll have enough data to develop a draft service concept for each route using the new Remix software that we have access to. But of course, we must not completely rely solely on data. We also have to do our due diligence and initiate a public outreach campaign to see what are they saying the needs are in the community in terms of transit routes, and also get feedback on our service concepts that we're developing. So before I move on to our next milestone, I wanted to quickly just show you how we're using the different planning tools to formulate our route concepts. This is our Remix software. It's a little hard to see, but basically it allows us to very quickly make adjustments on routing and scheduling, and to see how those changes impact our bottom line and our demographic reach. Hey Beverly, is it possible to dim the lights a little bit more? Okay. I can send this presentation out to everyone after the meeting, just so you can look at it a little bit closer. But at the very bottom of the screen, you can barely make out, but it does say how much this route costs us annually, and what the demographic breakdown is. You see how many, what percentage is minority, what percentage is low income, one-car household or zero-car households, elderly, bunch of different factors are included there. And then our schedules are automatically imported into the software. So this is Route 12, and then this is based on the RSNH recommendations, but they propose to cut Route 12 in the SSU area, saying that we have some underutilized service going to the islands on Route 12, and by drawing this route into Remix, we can then see at the very bottom, how does that impact the demographic reach, and how does it impact our bottom line? So this validates that it will save us about $300,000 by cutting it at SSU. Also on the very right side, there's this column, you can't really see it, but it's called wiggle room. And basically, as you add miles to your route, your wiggle room gets smaller and smaller, and that is the figure that tells us whether or not we need to add another bus or not. So as you're adding miles, the wiggle room goes down, and then eventually you're going to get to zero, and then you have to add another bus, and obviously that costs more on our end. So this is a really neat tool, and we're just kind of starting with it, but we're starting to see some good results as we start mocking up our concepts. Also, again on Remix, this map that I'm showing kind of visualizes the redundancies of Route 11. Route 11 kind of goes right down the middle of those two western corridors. There's Abercorn on the very far west, and then Waters, which is like kind of right down the middle. And so you see Route 11, which goes down the middle of those two. There's a lot of redundancy on Route 11, and RSNH told us that in the origin destination study. By getting rid of Route 11, and this is what we're going to be taking a close look at, well, first of all, that's how much these routes cost total on an annual basis. By getting rid of Route 11, we see that, again, we save about $300,000, and we can identify the actual areas that are losing service, which in this case, it's not a whole lot of service that you're losing, and the route patterns get simplified.
Grant, can you show us those figures for Route 11 that reflect poverty, no vehicles?
I can.
It's not part of it.
I don't have it on this, but yeah, we have all that information for every single route. So I can share that with you if you're interested.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Okay.
Also, on that page, that data, the term it uses is senior, not elderly.
Yes.
For the benefit of some of us.
Yeah. Point taken.
I know. I know it makes me feel good.
So this next slide shows us the APC data and how we're visualizing it. This is our Route 14. On the left you have the boardings, and on the right you have the alightings. In the past we've only had farebox data to show us how routes are performing. This is taking it to a whole nother level and tells us which stops are performing. So we're slowly but surely building up the data here. It's going to take some time, but some of the results to date are very interesting, and this is certainly going to play a role in how we redesign these routes. So next up, milestone number 2, in the early spring, we're going to take the results from our public outreach campaign, which will probably consist of surveys and a variety of meetings, and we're going to start to refine our service concepts accordingly. And at that point, we'll start drafting our transit development plan, which is our 5-year blueprint, which is due for updating in 2018. So I'm going to just quickly go over this. As we're developing our TDP, we're obviously going to have to identify some overarching goals. These are possible goals and strategies just based on what I've been hearing at our committee meetings and in our board meetings. Obviously, we're probably going to look at increasing ridership productivity, which means increased frequencies on primary corridors, eliminate service redundancies and underutilized route segments, reduce costly service in outlying areas, and design routes to be more intuitive by minimizing deviations and turns. Also, and I didn't put this on there, but we're going to look at potentially creating satellite pulse locations could be a goal or a strategy. Currently, our only pulse location is here at the ITC, and based on the results of our OD study, a secondary pulse location could be Oglethorpe Mall, since we know a lot of people are traveling there in this region. We also might want to consider as one of our goals, keeping in mind a conversion to electric vehicles, because the infrastructure requirements are much different. We have some limitations with electric vehicles. They don't run a charge forever. So including pulse locations that can simultaneously act as charging stations, that's something that we're going to keep in mind too. Other goals, improve travel times. I think we can do a lot better job coordinating our schedules and our transfers, eliminating stops that are too close to one another or that aren't used at all. We know that now with our APC data, and avoid congested areas. And this is going to be kind of a sensitive subject, I think, but we're going to take a close look at Broughton Street and whether or not we want to continue sending our buses down Broughton Street. There are obviously some benefits there, but there are also some drawbacks when it comes to our buses sitting in traffic, and then also having to navigate through all of the squares downtown really slows down our buses. And that kind of goes into possible goal and strategy number 3, to increase safety for our passengers and for our operators. We want to realign the routes, pretty much every route that goes through downtown, to get out of downtown as quickly and efficiently as possible. And I already mentioned potentially avoiding squares in an effort to increase safety and speed. So, as for the actual concept that we're going to be developing in the TDP, I'm going to just give you a very high-level conceptual overview of what we've been thinking. These black lines are our existing transit routes right now. First, we need to identify the major areas of passenger activity. The OD study will obviously validate this, as will our APC data. But these are some of them, and I'll just give you a second to kind of read over them. But none of these should really surprise you. Obviously, the major commercial areas, the different malls, the Walmarts, and then the educational institutions like SSU and downtown. These are really what we think are major trip attractors. Next, what we do with those major trip attractors is we prioritize them. So those larger bubbles you see are the ITC, this facility, and then Oglethorpe Mall on the southern end. Those royal blue dots that are more in our core, those represent minor transfer hubs. These locations should probably have upgraded facilities such as shelters, security cameras, etc. And then the darker blue bubbles and the black bubbles represent secondary transfer hubs and satellite locations for potential park and rides. So after we prioritize those locations, then we're going to start looking at connecting these major activity areas. Again, this is all conceptual. This does not include actual turns. So first, we're going to focus on those trunk corridors, which are those red lines. Those represent, for the most part, Abercorn, Waters, and Skidaway. These corridors, we're hoping right now to have the highest frequencies in our network. After that, we're going to add secondary connections. These wouldn't see frequencies as good as those trunk corridors, but we're hoping to get 30 to 40 minute frequencies on these areas. The one on the northwestern side is the Augusta Avenue corridor in West Savannah. We have the southern leg of Abercorn Street connecting to Savannah Mall. Montgomery Cross and or Eisenhower on the southern side connecting Oglethorpe Mall with Walmart. And then up by our downtown area, we have Anderson and Henry or 37th Street acting as our east-west corridor downtown.
Brad, just to interrupt real quick. You said 30 to 40 minutes on the sub connection.
Yes, sir.
What kind of turnaround times do you think around the trunk lines?
The trunk line's 15 to 20. If we can achieve that, that's our goal.
That would be great.
That would be unbelievable.
And so, one of the ways that we're going to have to do that, obviously we have a fixed budget. And so, one of the ways we're going to try to do that is find hours that are very, very unproductive in our other routes and repurpose them to achieve these high frequencies. And obviously that's going to go through a vetting process with you, with the public, and internally with staff, but that's really our overarching goal.
So if I could ask a question, Grant. So,
Sure.
so in looking at sort of what you're throwing out at us, I mean, this is based. You sort of, I won't say you've scrapped all the existing routes, but it's sort of going back to the drawing board and saying, let's start afresh, given the data that we have, and this is how we build our route system.
Right. And we vet that data out through public engagement.
Uh-huh.
So that is data, but you still need the public engagement.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but the secondary goal, which is going to be probably the hardest part out of all of this, is we don't necessarily want to leave someone without service.
Right.
They currently have service.
Right.
And I think it's just going to be a matter of giving them the appropriate level of service and the mode of service that we're using.
Yeah.
There are a lot of innovative techniques out there that we're going to be taking a very close look at, but as you all know, traditional fixed route transit is expensive, so taking it way out where it's rarely used doesn't really make sense.
Yes. And I think that's a really good point that you make, that the idea that people who currently have service, it is not intended to eliminate that service. It may eliminate the mode or the frequency or the way in which it's delivered, but we still want to make sure that people who are currently enjoying service will continue to enjoy service.
Correct. Yep.
And even with, go ahead.
Let's make sure on the poverty level that we've got good information on that, because we know that absolutely most of those people that are in poverty just don't have transportation. And we really need to take a good look at that so that we can, we don't want to go overboard, but we really need to help those people that, that are in poverty and those kind of things, Grant, because all of these things are really necessary, and especially where our transportation makes a big difference for other people in the community, whether it's going to a supermarket or some place to the big department stores, or going for medical help, or whatever the situation is. But we just don't want to leave those in poverty out if it's possible. And I'm not talking about having 3 people on a route, but I'm talking about how you can utilize them when you have that information on poverty.
Absolutely.
I just want to, if you leave it up, Grant, just want to point something out real quick. So obviously we're on a fixed budget, and the goal is to put our resources where the riders are going, and obviously these are the 2 major ones, and these are sub areas. Out here in these outlying areas, we talked about park and rides, but also non-traditional ways to get people around. And then Commissioner Jones, you and I talked about neighborhood shuttles. But ideally, we want to feed people to our trunk corridors. And how we do that within our budget is where we have to be innovative. But the point is that that's what transit's moving to now, is innovative ways to get people to trunk corridors.
And we've been talking
Yep.
about that.
We have. Yep.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I'm all about redesign. I'm all about looking at what we came from. However, I need to make sure that we're concentrating on other areas, like he just said, other areas we have never tapped into, because the population is shifting. The NPC report proved that the population is shifting, and the population is not by design about what's up here. And I understand. I'm in concurrence with this right here, but this is based off current ridership. What about ridership that we haven't even found out there that may be ridership that we can tap into? So let's make sure we're looking to those aspects as well. And like I said, like Curtis said, we talked about that after you brought up 20, and that's a great idea. But let's make sure we don't get so focused on looking at ridership that we forget about potential ridership.
Yep.
Because there are potential riderships out there too.
Yep. And the Remix software will help with that. Obviously, it brings in robust amount of demographic information. So we'll look at that, and then the origin destination study too will obviously show us the volume of people in our community who are commuting to different locations. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. And then these third lines that I'm showing on the screen, these are the connections to our satellite stops that Curtis mentioned. The airport area and Gulfstream area to downtown, either directly or via a transfer. Walmart on Highway 17 and Savannah Mall. And then Island Town Center on the east side is one that we're going to take a very close look at to potentially connect it at Cat Central. I say this because Route 10 cuts all the way across downtown currently, and by cutting across downtown on every single trip, it's really slowing that service down. So we want to find out, are people on the islands actually going downtown, or are they going to the south side by the mall, by Walmart? Because if they're not all going downtown, then we have to take a strong consideration to connecting it somewhere, so that those individuals could then take 27, 28, or 31 to the south side without having to go downtown. That will improve your travel times if that's the case.
Yeah, Grant, and keeping or in line with what Jay was just talking about future stuff, I would imagine with all the growth that we've got on the west side that at some point we're going to need something that goes north-south out there and not all the way into town. I mean, if you want to come from out on 17 now and you want to get up to around Gulfstream or something, you got to come all the way in town and go all the way back out. So
yeah,
that's something else I think we're going to have to address at some point.
The big you're right, and the big challenge with that one is our service district, and that's the area obviously where we can't stop everywhere, and so the demand has to be high enough that the productivity of that connection is still good enough without stopping in the Pooler and Bloomingdale area, basically.
Right.
So that's what we need to figure out.
If the district was countywide, obviously we could start doing pilot programs and seeing where these riders are going in.
Right.
Well, and that might have to be one of the alternative methods that we use too, with smaller vehicles or even a van system or something. I think we're going to have to address some north-south movement.
You've got a lot of employers off that Route 80 corridor where all the warehouses are back by JCB and back in that section.
A lot of potential out there.
There's a lot of jobs out there. It'd be good to get some of the folks downtown.
And we've received phone calls from a lot of those job centers that they can't get employees to work.
Well, I think that the commission is looking at making transit countywide.
Yes.
So I think that's no secret. So I think that in the future, some of that can be even tweaked a little more if you become countywide. And the only thing that I would ask, and I think I've had this conversation with you all before, is that before the commission makes a move on that, I want to make sure that we have all the data to support whether it is feasible or not feasible, because the last thing I want to do
is vote on it and then it could come right back in my face.
Well, but incur more of a problem for CAT.
Yeah, I understand, and that's what I mean by come back in my face.
Right.
Because we vote for it and we're not ready to supply to take care of what we need to do out there.
So I think it's imperative before the commission takes any action to have all the data necessary to be able to have an intelligent discussion about whether this should or should not happen.
Right, and we've traded at least 50 emails and several spreadsheets and data with staff at the county, and we will continue to do so until they're satisfied that they have an understanding of what it would need to do that.
Yeah, but it also might take a workshop, something to explain it, because unless you can understand all the details, just lines on a page might not tell you everything.
And it's not just going to a new location. You're talking about installing bus stops,
that's my
shelters.
point.
Yeah. And
I
training.
want to know everything.
There's
I want to know if this is, if an expansion of that magnitude is going to be beneficial to CAT and to the riders
Right.
at the same time, and can we sustain it?
Right, and you wouldn't want to just draw a line from point A to point B and put
Right.
a bus on the street.
That's
You'd
why
want
I
to do some
think
analysis. You'd want to meet municipalities, trying to find out where they're seeing the people move. You'd want to do a pilot program, put up temporary bus stops, and see if those are productive before you actually do install permanent shelters and pads. So there is a lot to do and a lot
Well, I
to think
would make
about.
a recommendation then that possibly some type of a oral workshop briefing, not just sending us something on a piece of paper where questions can be asked and information can be discussed.
And another thing too is, if we see still on the west side, we've got a lot of people who don't have transportation and they're walking to work. They get up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and walk because of those huge warehouses that are on the west side, and they just unfortunately don't have that. And it's been taught to some of them, Curtis, just remember, is some of the big ones, and if you can talk to maybe 3 or 4 of them, 5 or 6 of them, that they would come in and help out with that, because we have to wait, like was said, if we're going to get the other municipalities to come on board. But going beyond that, let's see if we can get some of those big warehouse people that are making a lot of money now that might want to help with that situation, because you have a few of them that they need employees and they do something, but they still don't always have enough because of the turnout that has been.
And when you're talking to those, when you talk to those warehouses, make sure you're going outside of your traditional time frames too. Because traditional time frames don't necessarily work for warehouses. The warehouses work in 8-hour intervals. So if you're not working within their time stream, you're not going to meet the demand of what they got going on in the warehouses. So make sure we're not just going with traditional time frames too.
If we continue to be stymied in having a countywide system, is a contract service an option with those employers?
Yeah, I mean, it's open to the public. Well, if they're assisting, if they're going to pay money to have, the problem is the transit district is a legal entity involved here, and so the county would have to do something with the actual district. We can't arbitrarily service a district that is not involved
under the service
So
district.
you couldn't do a contract in pool.
Under the present legislation, in order to do that, you would have to contract, essentially a charter, or it was a scheduled charter, a contract. You would have to cover all of what they pay. Would have to cover all of your costs, including a portion of your administrative or the cost, operational costs that are not directly involved with a particular route. You would have to.
And what I'm thinking of is like the contracts we have now for the Liberty Street shuttle, or
But those are within our district. That's the issue.
So that would be outside the district.
Yeah. Ty would have to make sure we double check on that, because.
Well, I can't tell you this. Pool has grown tremendously. The second tier is already there as far as the shopping area. The third tier is right there being developed. So they're going to run out of having employees to go out there eventually, and that's just something that's going to have to happen eventually. So.
not just employees, it's customers.
Well, customers as well.
We
I more my employees, because those people, you don't have employees, you don't have customers.
If you have customers,
You definitely don't have that the other way either.
What did you get something?
Yeah, I was just, my question for Helen, I guess, is what kind of a time frame were you thinking about?
It's not necessarily me, I mean, it's the commission,
Oh, I
and
understand.
it's, the chairman has discussed this on numerous occasions, and it was brought up in our budget, in our millage setting, commission meeting last Friday. So I think he's already looking into it.
They compile the information and bring that to us.
I was just wondering, are we talking 6 months, a year?
I think as soon as they can get the information, they're
It's based
interested
on-
in looking at it.
It's based on what they come up with.
They are, and this is why I'm very concerned about this. I think and I do not want to speak for anybody else, but I think the train of thought here is if CAT is county-wide, it will generate more revenue for CAT.
But I think that Curtis.
No, I'm
yeah,
saying that I think
Yeah,
that
finish, yeah.
that
Yeah.
is sort of where the commission's thought process is.
Right.
In other words, if everybody's paying into this transit tax, then it'll allow us to run these routes out countywide. I don't think and I did stress when I had the opportunity to talk to the chairman to please make sure that he had all the data before, a decision like this was made or it was brought before us for a vote, because sometimes the devil is in the details, and we don't know, like you were saying, what needs will be out there in order to run this service countywide.
We've given projected millage rates that would take to do 3 routes countywide, 3 additional routes with hour-long headways. Anything higher frequency in that or additional coverage in that would be an additional millage. We've given that to the county, so it's just a matter of getting into the weeds as to what the county wants to do.
And
You
that's
also gave
why.
one for six routes, didn't you?
Right, it was based on, the last request was based on the Cutter Center for Urban Transit Research that did our West Side expansion study, and they proposed 6 routes, and then they actually recommended 3 out of that 6. We also costed up that and explained to the county staff what the millage would need to be to accommodate that study. Obviously, at the end of the day, we don't know exactly where the routes would go, but we can give a general ballpark idea of how much it would cost to do generalized route structure in specific municipalities.
And that's why I think we as commissioners that are board members here need to insist that this be a presentation where questions can be asked and data can be discussed, because I don't want us to be thrust into a vote that could ultimately hurt CAT and make our service not the way it needs to be. So I'm just real careful about how we move forward with this, and I'm hoping that my fellow board members would feel the same way.
But I think the ball is in the county's court.
I understand
to set
that.
this up and have us come talk to them.
Well,
But
I will
think that's
ask,
where we are.
and with the consent of all of us here, that we have some type of a presentation, not just data given to us that maybe board members may or may not thoroughly read.
Mm-hmm.
This is too important of a decision to do it halfway. Everything needs to be out on the table, and everything needs to be reviewed and discussed.
Okay, let's have a few more questions, and we're going to have to move on
Yeah.
here, because we're planning to come back for a workshop to continue this.
Okay.
I just wanted to suggest that any conversation about being countywide be considered a first step toward being a regional system. We don't want to just be countywide. To make this really effective, we've got to be going further than that.
And that specifically hits on the fact that we just talked to Georgia Department of Transportation about doing parking rights in Effingham, in Bryan, looking outside of the county as well.
That would also change the way this thing works too, because now you get an influx of different people from a different population. People might be more willing to drive to catch it out to those areas that we aren't serving currently. So.
Last question. We've really got to move on.
Well, it's not, okay, and it's
Okay,
just
go
a
ahead.
comment, but I did want to follow up on what Helen is saying, and just for clarification, this board has been hitting its head against a brick wall for years about the question of going countywide, and now there appears to be some light at the end of the tunnel with respect to our possibly going countywide. But as Helen is suggesting, before we do so, we want to make sure that that we recognize that going countywide is not a panacea. That we are indeed looking at substantially increased costs to provide the service
Right.
that's entailed.
And
So
just a quick note, the increased millage it would take to do countywide, A, but B, that millage would not be realized until the next transit tax receipts are received. So you couldn't provide service the day after that vote.
right.
Correct. You will have to wait for it.
Thank you.
All that needs to be discussed.
All
Alright, so I have just a few more slides. So
You said it'd be a long meeting.
We knew this, I knew this was gonna be a long presentation because it's very interesting and it deals with the future of CAT.
Yes, yes,
So I
it
don't
does.
wanna rush you. Take your time.
We wanna rush it.
Right.
So these gray areas, we kind of already talked about this and Curtis touched on it a little bit. These are kind of what we're considering primary neighborhoods that need some sort of transit service. We know that. The need already exists. They're mostly minority populations and or low income populations. And there's an opportunity for high transit use as well. So the challenge is really going to be with these neighborhoods, how do we connect them to the trunk lines efficiently? Large buses are not meant to go through neighborhoods, but oftentimes they do. So are we going to do neighborhood shuttles that are a smaller vehicle? Are we going to do on-demand service, flex service, something of that nature? That's what we have to figure out. And then these orange areas represent secondary neighborhoods which might or might not be able to support traditional fixed route service, but currently we provide fixed route service to these areas, which hurts our overall system efficiency, but that's just another thing that we're going to have to look at. So do we provide an Uber Lyft type of partnership in these areas? Do we do flex or zonal service? Can we somehow incorporate our existing paratransit service to do like a paratransit optimization where it switches from paratransit to fixed route? We're going to look at all options basically to see what's the best way for us to service these populations. So then our final milestone, and this is my last slide, about a year from now, our hope is to come to you to adopt the new TDP and start initiating these service changes. I did put a star by initiating the service changes. Depending on how significant those changes are that we are proposing, it might require a longer time period to implement, such as if we're saying a super stop at Cat Central or something of that nature. We can't do that overnight, obviously. It takes architecture, engineering, a lot of work needs to be done. So we'll have a backwards calendar for those projects as well.
And this is, Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is probably the most aggressive time frame ever.
Yeah, yeah. So
most agencies take 2 or more years to do a service change like this, and so we're setting a calendar to try to do it in 1 year. So it's going to have to be a little flexible, especially if we suddenly now are countywide and now have to look at everything. And so,
yeah.
But we needed to get something set in stone as to some milestones and a projected date, so we can start working towards that.
Exactly.
Besides the additional service and all of that, what we really need to do a better job of putting it out in the public, and especially to the riders that we have now and all, because just doing it in 3 areas, that's not sufficient. And if we can get with the newspaper, like they do, about having these additional meetings and all, and come together so that the grant, we can get that out so we don't have the situation where people might not know about it and not satisfied, and it's just something that needs to be explained to them and all, but get them here.
Absolutely. This isn't going to work without a significant public involvement component, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that use the service. So we need to hit them from all angles. Online surveys on our platforms, survey the operators, literally do whatever we can, public meetings, forums, you name it. It's going to be a pretty large undertaking, but you're right.
All right.
Any final questions?
Thank you, Grant.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Grant. We'll hold you to June. So, Bill, would you like to introduce this next presentation?
Oh, can you not guess?
Yes, it's something about which we're all very excited.
It would be great.
The app.
Very good.
All right.
Which I've not had the pleasure of enjoying yet, though the offer has been extended to equip my phone to access it. But it's going to be a really important development for our system, because it's an opportunity for our system to sort of be on the same level as all other providers of transit along these lines. And I think it's a real step forward. I think it's going to be really revolutionary in terms of how people determine when the bus is going to be available for them.
All right, so we have Brandon here is going to be doing the presentation on the CAT phone app.
Morning. My name is Brandon Copel, and I am an IT analyst here at Chatham Transit. And just first wanted to make sure that the technology is working, which it is. And I'm going to lead off with a little PowerPoint before I get into a live demo. So first off, I'm very excited to present this mobile app to you guys for a number of reasons. Number one, professionally, I've been looking at this app for about 18 months, ever since I started here, so looking forward to getting it off my desk, getting it out there into the public, number one, but also as a customer, I'm a young urban professional. I use this app every day. I use public transit, and public transit is something that's very important to my customer demographic. In fact, when I was looking to move here to Savannah, I had a choice of whether or not to live in Pooler or any of the outlying areas, and I chose to live downtown Savannah because of public transit. So this is an app that is specifically geared towards reaching people like myself, which in my opinion is a large growth demographic for the public transit industry. Okay, a little bit about the smartphone and mobile app market. In 2016, 77% of US has a smartphone, which is up from 35% in 2011. So the trend is clear. This is a platform that can help us reach 70% of the customer base. And 70% of millennials get their information from smartphones. So this is a great tool for Chatham Area Transit to use to reach their customer base. And it solves one of the problems that, as a customer, I run into, which is reliability. With this app, I no longer need to look at the schedule. I just look at the real-time vehicle information. And living downtown, I have about 5 or 6 different options. And based upon when the next bus is coming, I choose which route to take. This CAT mobile app is developed for the Android and Apple iOS system, so both iPhones and any cell phone that runs the Android operating system. It'll be deployed through the App Store, which is for iPhones, and the Google Play Store, which is for Android. And this is obviously a very big deal. I don't need to tell this audience, but it's the first customer-facing app for Chatham Area Transit and has a great potential to reach the riders. All right, about to channel my Steve Jobs. I'm going to give you guys a live demo. The app does exist. It is on my phone. So there's a couple of different ways to search for real-time vehicle information. And the first one is to search by route, which is that, I don't know if you can see, but this top button here. Go to routes, scroll down the list of available routes, and I'm going to use the 28 walkers. And let's say that I'm at Cat Central and I want to head towards the ITC. So I'll be selecting the inbound route. Okay. So let's try outbound. All right. So one of the caveats of this application is the CAD AVL compliance, and whether or not the hardware on the bus is actually working properly, which is still something that we're working towards. but this vehicle, or this bus on the 28 outbound is logged in, and you can tell by this icon up here on the left. So that is actually the real-time vehicle location for the 2028. And let's see. You can scroll in to actually see every stop that is on the route. So let's say that I am on the corner of East Liberty and Price Street. I'm at this stop and I want to see how long it takes to get, how long it will take for that bus to reach that stop. I select the stop, and in 2 minutes, the 28 outbound will be at that location. So if I'm at home and I'm deciding, when should I leave to catch that bus, I know that I have 2 minutes to reach that stop.
Like Uber.
Yes, exactly. And there are also some very interesting integrations with third-party apps like Uber using this platform.
Well, I mean, because that's what people want to see now. Where is it? How long do I have? And this is tremendous to be able to say, can I make that one, or do I have to wait for the next one? And if I do, I'm going to slow down.
Absolutely. So having the pleasure, the privilege of beta testing this app and using public transit, I rely on this, and it works great. So the other ways to search are by actual stop number, and this is something that Chatham Area Transit would need to publish on their website in a searchable format, and also actually place on each stop to make it visible to the public. What stop do I live next to? And after a period of time, maybe you call the call center and you figure out I live at stop 16. Let's see, 18.
Where would the QR code be posted?
The same place that you would post the stop number. It would be one sticker, a QR code, and the actual stop number, and maybe the stop description if you wanted to. Let's see, and the stop is actually also posted in the app. So this is stop 1541. So you can search by stop number 1541. And these routes service that stop, and those are the times that they will be at that stop. The 28 will be there in 15 minutes, the 27 in 39 minutes.
Do you know if that's inbound or outbound?
So the stop number is actually indicative of the direction.
Oh, I see.
Stops.
Yes, okay.
You can also, if you saw a bus going by you and you were curious, where is that bus heading if you didn't see the head sign? So this is bus 3021. In addition to the stop number, you can also search by bus number. And there it is. It's the 28 to the Walmart.
So it takes you to that spot where the bus is?
That's correct. And then the other ability, or searching ability, is QR code, which is something that I don't know if you guys are familiar. I actually have a screenshot of it, but QR codes look something similar to this. They're two-dimensional barcodes, and you can scan them. So if I get out the QR code reader on my app, I scan this. It basically goes to a web page, and it'll tell you, okay, see that stop QR code is 1615 Cat Central, and the bus will be there in 29 minutes. From here, you can also go to routes and schedules.
So real quick,
yes,
back up on that one. So are you saying that if you're at a location and you're not sure what the street is or whatever, you can scan the QR code at the bus stop, and then it brings up when the bus and what route is going to be there?
That's correct.
If I'm a tourist and I'm lost downtown,
that would be a good feature.
Will it find me based on my location turn on and tell me where the next stop, closest stop is to me?
It's certainly a possibility for enhancement, but currently the app was not developed for that. And it's easy to do, but our CAD ABL vendor has developed this for Chatham Area Transit, and something like that would be an enhancement that they would want to scope out and cost out. But it's certainly absolutely possible. Yes. So from here, you can also look at routes and schedules. You can put in the day and the time range, and select the route that you're looking for, the direction, and it'll come up with the schedule times and the order in which the stops run. So those are the main features of the app. Yes, it's a very good tool.
You ready for questions?
I do have a couple more slides that talk about the next steps and the possibilities. Okay. So the next steps, action items for Chatham Area Transit for a successful launch. There's a circuit upgrade that needs to take place. We'll be expecting a lot of internet traffic, and basically you need a bigger pipe to handle that traffic. You got to think Super Bowl Sunday, or for Chatham Area Transit, I guess it would be St. Patrick's Day, where the servers are getting bombarded with internet traffic, people doing a lot of queries, and you need to have the infrastructure to handle that traffic. Also, with the upgrade is cybersecurity. There are things that this type of mobile app leaves the network open to, like distributed denial of service attacks, and those are some things that can be handled with an upgrade to the AT&T service, which I think is outlined later in this board meeting. Another step is a marketing campaign. Chatham Area Transit needs to build this excitement and get the word out to people like tourists, not just those that live within, not just those that live here full time, but when you step off the airport, if you knew about this app, you download it, and it would be a great tool for tourists as well. As I mentioned earlier, we need to publish stop numbers in a searchable format on the website, install the stickers on each stop that has the QR code and stop number, and as unfortunately we saw in this demo, which live demo stuff always happens, but increase the consistency of the CAT ABL usage. Okay, how can CAT build off this platform? There is a place on here that you can deliver a message to the customer, so you could publish that with service alerts. This could be developed for paratransit for, where's my ride, to reduce the call center volume of customers asking how long until my ride gets there. It has the platform for mobile ticketing and integrations with third-party apps such as Uber, Lyft, parking, bike share. You could integrate basically with any customer-facing app that the city is developing. Chatham Area Transit has the infrastructure, regardless of the vendor who created it, which is the CAT ABL vendor. This infrastructure will still exist and can be built off of. Okay.
Questions?
Yes.
Comments?
Very quick. You said that it could interface with any app, so like I know that we farm out some of our paratransit to Yellow Cab, and Yellow Cab has their own app that's very similar to this, but our app could interface with theirs.
Absolutely.
First question, only reason why I'm saying this is because when I started riding the buses, I didn't have the app. So what I used was Google Maps and Maps. And Google Maps and Maps offer the same exact information. My only thing I think is, as far as an advantage for CAT would be if we can provide it in real time. And I don't know if we can actually do that, where we have some kind of antenna on the bus where we have real time versus an estimated time, which what is the same thing I'm seeing here is the same thing is offered in Maps and Google Maps.
Yeah, well, your understanding isn't exactly correct. Google Maps is static data, so it's all scheduled data. But this app is real-time vehicle information from the CAT ABL vendor.
Okay.
So it is real-time.
Okay.
And Google does have that ability to have real-time information, but it requires some additional programming and infrastructure that Chatham Area Transit does not yet have.
And then the other question would be, Google Maps won't have to worry about the Super Bowl effect, because Google Maps already has the infrastructure to be able to counteract against the Super Bowl effect or the St. Patrick's Day effect. It would be here. So, I mean, what kind of what kind of cost would this be to upgrade to where we can be able to back something like that?
Yeah, that's actually a really exciting project, and the requirement is GTFS real-time, which is a data format. Currently, the CAT-AVL vendor has their own proprietary data format, and what Chatham Area Transit would need to do is approach that CAT-AVL vendor into creating a separate database where their information is put into that GTFS real-time format, and then we could serve it up to Google, and they would have the real-time vehicle information.
But what kind of cost would this, estimated cost, do you think?
Andrews, their CAT-AVL vendor is very difficult, so I really can't speculate.
Can we get a cost?
We can.
If this is something we're going to be asking for,
Right.
we need to know what it costs.
Yeah, one of the drawbacks of this CAT-AVL vendor is they're out of Spain, and they have their own specific type of format, and we can't duplicate that, and they would most likely would charge us a decent amount of money to copy that onto an American format.
And then who would actually be the one to, I guess, be in charge of this infrastructure, make sure if you have any breakdowns or anything going on within the system, who would be the one to manage it?
Well, we manage our system, and we work with the CAT-AVL provider when we have crashes and stuff like that. Brandon's been working close with them. They're not exactly the easiest company to deal with, and that's what we were talking to Mr. Kingston about, is that the FTA has given us permission to start the process, if funding becomes available, to replace our CAT-AVL system. We've had it for 5 years,
Okay.
and at this time we don't have any identified funding to do that, but it's been a challenge for the last 5 years dealing with a foreign vendor.
And my thing is, if we're going to be dealing with a foreign vendor now, I don't want to be trying to play money, trying to keep up with a foreign vendor. That's my
Right. I would love the day to say that we're purchasing a different system.
I got you.
I don't think we ought to invest any more money than anything associates with our system.
My question is once we're able to divorce ourselves from this company, remind me of the name?
Indra.
Once we're able to divorce ourselves from them, what does that do to this app?
Well, the platform still exists, so the servers, the network, the new circuits, the web services, all that still exists, and the new vendor can leverage that platform with their own app. You could put any customer-facing app on that platform.
How transferable is it?
It would essentially be a new app.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not
So
transferable.
we're going to have to spend a bunch more money to do the app over again.
Any CAT-AVL vendor will include an app that has real-time vehicle information.
Well, that hasn't been true.
Well, not with them, but the vendors that operate within our country do that, and it would be part of their package that they submit when we do an RFP.
Okay. So I think last question then is, when can I download this, because I can't now?
So after these steps that I had mentioned, after all this happens, then the app can be published on the app stores, the Google Play Store and the App Store, and at that point it's open to the public with a marketing campaign. Internally, we can get it on any phone, any Android phone. It's easy to put on. Apple, giving the proprietary nature of Apple and their self-deprecating software platforms, it's more difficult. It's more difficult to put it on an iPhone. But I believe at some point Beverly polled some of the board members, and if you provided the unique identifier for your iPhone, then we can go ahead and install that.
So, with us, that's fine, but what about the public?
Right. We have to first upgrade the circuits before the public can use it.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, we won't be able to. The traffic will be too high for our current circuits.
That's still not an answer. When?
We're hoping the board approves us to renew our contract with AT&T with the upgraded circuit, and once that's done, then we're looking at.
It's about 2 or 3 months I'll say 2 months to get the vendor to actually AT&T to upgrade the circuit.
And what's the crash number? I mean, what's the I guess the big number that you said, the Super Bowl number? What is the number you think? I mean.
Well, what I did was I took peak ridership and I took an average. We did a stress test on the circuit, so I had 5 people hit the server at the same time, and then multiplied that by peak ridership. I forget what the actual number was, but this circuit upgrade is a 250 megabit circuit, which is more than adequate.
Okay. Except during St. Patrick's Day.
Well, it's St. Patrick's Day. I mean, you can't even get on your cell phone, right? Because so many people. It's really the cell phone provider that's limiting your cell phone service.
I agree.
Just a couple questions. So you say in 2 to 3 months, assuming that we approve this contract, then we'll be ready to go public with the app?
That's correct. With the marketing campaign and publishing all of these stop numbers and QR codes, it's ready to go. The code for this app has been static for a couple months now, so it's ready to go.
And so with what you have in mind for the next 2 or 3 months, will that afford you or afford us the ability to send the text out that you were talking about to riders about, service interruptions and those kinds of things?
So that would be a separate project. That's out of scope of this, but you can use it with the platform, yes.
Because I think that'd be an extremely valuable opportunity, particularly if buses break down and that kind of thing, that folks could be advised. And also with respect to, when we have to cancel service for ice storms, other kinds of situations and the like. The other thing is, I do suspect that we'll have to train our operators to be on the lookout for folks who are sort of running to the stop at the last minute because, once this app is effective, people will take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm really happy that you've done what you've done on this. This is exciting. I think it really moves CAT into the future where we should have been, but we're going to be. So I really appreciate your work on this.
Yeah. So then would anybody like him to try to get this app on their phones?
Yeah, I'll try.
Yes.
I mean,
I'll try.
I got an iPhone, so I don't know.
Yeah. You can do it with an iPhone.
You have to give the ID number.
You can get the iPhone.
okay, well, in moving right along, we have another good one. Sheila Michael is going to talk to us about employee development and the training program. While they're finding this, are we still on I saw the desktop boardroom. Are we still on schedule for July 2nd?
For a digital boardroom on July 18th at our board meeting.
Still on?
We're going to actually do parallel because if something happens, we want to still be able to do what we need to do. But that's the goal, is to do parallel. Brandon, we're still, the units have been ordered, from what I understand.
Oh yes, they were on back order, but they should be in by the next board meeting. And we're on schedule to do the digital boardroom for next month's board meeting.
We're going to do parallel, but then we're also going to try and schedule training as well, correct?
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Is your desktop connected to the desktop? Can you get Beverly into the desktop?
Sir?
Oh, the thing, the co-op. Yeah, I see. That's the means of something wrong. It's a Dale, thing. Think.
That makes this slower. Shame on the app.
So everybody thought I was kidding when I said it's going to be a long meeting.
You might have to.
this point, good afternoon. CAT has always supported employee and encouraged employee development and training. However, we were asked to provide an official written employee development and training program. So that's what we're here to present to you today. CAT's commitment is to encourage and promote continuous development, training, and educational opportunities for its employees, which are in alignment with the organization's short-term and long-term goals. We're committed to provide relevant resources for development and training. Management's responsibility is to clearly define and disseminate the organization's short-term and long-term goals, so we all need to know what those are, and then to provide relevant resources for development and training. The way that we would like to do this is develop a committee called the Employee Development and Training Review Committee. The committee would consist of 2 management team members, 2 supervisors, and 2 staff level employees, and it would be facilitated by Human Resources. This committee would develop and manage the process to identify and incorporate training which consists of the employee's requests and needs, CAT's short-term and long-term goals, and budgetary allocation. The committee will develop and manage the procedures for employees to submit, committee review, final approval, and employee notification in alignment with best practices of organizations such as AFTA. They will then develop an annual employee development training program. The committee would have several options, educational and training opportunities, which would include, and I've provided more in-depth information in your package regarding these opportunities. But in summary, they are in-house training, cross-training, job shadowing, in-house internship, seminars, workshops, and webinars, external training, and the tuition reimbursement policy, which is currently available to administrative staff. Sorry.
Okay.
The employee's responsibility. As an employee in good standing who expresses commitment to professional development or to pursue a more challenging opportunity within the organization, shall ensure that CAT's short-term and long-term goals align with their own goals. Then they would apply for CAT's development, educational, and/or training opportunities by first completing a review with his or her department head and obtaining their recommendation of their individual development plan. They would then submit that recommended IDP and employee development and training application, along with a written essay incorporating responses to the following questions. The first question is, what would you identify as areas for personal growth and professional development? The second one would be, how and why you will benefit from CAT's employee development and training plan. 3, what are your career goals and how do they align with CAT's short-term and long-term goals? And 4, where do you see yourself at CAT and in the public transportation industry in the future? The individual development plan that we would like for them to complete would look like this. As you can see here, it has the employee's name. First column is developmental goals for the upcoming year, and they would list what those goals are, 1, 2, 3. The relationship of those goals to the organization goals, how does it relate? The third column, knowledge, skills, and abilities to be developed. The next one is the developmental activity. The next is the resources, and finally the date for completion. Of course, there are instructions that would be provided to employees for that individual development plan that is identified here. Exactly what are we looking for in terms of responses. And finally, the outcome and results from this program is to have more proficient, skilled, competent, and efficiently trained staff, and to improve employee morale and job satisfaction, and increase our internal pool of qualified staff available for promotional opportunities. Yes, sir.
On the individual development plan and the written essay, do we have any kind of electronic workstations available for any employee to use?
Yes, we do.
Well, I mean, if we do, wouldn't it be better to have that essay done that way, or that plan done that way, rather than something written, turned in on paper?
They could always do it electronically. We have this available electronically, and if they like to do it at our facility, we have that alternative available. At Cat Central, in the lobby, we have a 3-station computer pool set up. 2 of those stations are free for our employees to come and use at any time.
It would have to be typed, obviously.
Yeah.
They could write it and then come in and use our system to type it, but ultimately it would be typed to be able to make sure everybody.
Right. Well, and I wasn't referring to something written in longhand versus typed. I'm really thinking in terms of managing this going forward. This is going to be so much easier for you to manage if you're accessing all of this data electronically instead of somebody turning in something on a piece of paper.
Correct.
Well, certainly we could set up a separate separate network for them to submit the information into. Is that what you're talking about?
Well,
So
I mean,
we
they
can
would
manage
submit
it?
that way, but it would also create a tracking system as they move through the system.
Okay.
How many people do you think you could manage at once in this?
I think it depends upon what the budget will allow. Some of the training opportunities we've recommended do not have a real financial cost to it. For example, the National Transit Institute that provides some of the training opportunities, the courses themselves are free. The CAT would be responsible for the actual travel. So travel for the employees to get there, if they have to stay overnight, a hotel fee, that type of thing. But I envision that we would at least be able to accommodate a minimum of 5 per year, depending upon the type of program they're interested in going into.
So that's not a lot.
No, unless we're going to put more money into the process.
That would be 5 people that there was a cost associated with. The
Yes.
programs that you're talking about that don't have
There
a
are
cost
non-cost
associated.
programs.
There are non-cost programs
Right, so
and
there's
opportunities. In-house training is another one. That's one of the recommendations. When we would have our normal, for example, bus operators that are trained for CDL license, many times there are employees in other departments that are interested in that particular position that we could then allow to participate in that same training program that's ongoing and then be promotable from there.
I think I was thinking more of trying to get more people cross training. I mean,
That's one of the
I mean,
options
I
is
like
cross-training
this.
as well.
I mean, I'm not resisting it, but I would just like to be able to work with more than 5 people at once. I mean, I see the advantage of having 5 people that you see potential promoting, but I also would like to see something for just maintenance people, for example, to continue to train them and
And that's
office
inclusive in-
so I wanted to
Yeah.
just trying to make sure we're not limiting it to 5 people altogether.
Well, you asked for an idea. I'm really not sure how many people would even be interested or apply. And of course, we do need to watch whatever our budgetary requirements are. But I think the opportunity for employees to take advantage on any level is there. That was the intent of having varying selections for what type of training could be offered, including for maintenance employees.
Right, so for example, we would offer training for all maintenance personnel on specific things that will help grow their skill set. However, if there was a maintenance employee that wanted to do something beyond that or learn some other different thing, we could certainly incorporate that. If they wanted to go take a course in, say, maintenance leadership and it was offered in New Jersey, we would have to pay for that. So as you get closer to the cost area, it obviously we have to make sure we're in budget. But there's plenty of opportunities that don't cost any money. Absolutely job shadowing. There's a lot of opportunities there. So developing this committee and having a committee made up of employees to kind of vet out, how many we can do and who qualifies the most based on how they apply. And then the essay portion is something that is not to use this, because I mean, if anybody can just write their name and say I'm interested, but if you take the time to write down why you're interested and what benefit that'll be for CAT in the industry and improve your overall career, so you're taking the time, that's an extra mile, so that's why kind of that's in place there. But having the committee itself put forth recommended applicants, especially in a cost situation, is to me the fairest way and to develop those standards. And obviously HR will facilitate that, but the committee idea Sheila and I discussed would probably be the fairest way to do it.
I'm familiar with IDPs. My only quorum is the makeup of the IDPs was what? It was 2 managers, 2 supervisors, and 2 employees, correct?
Correct.
All right. When you're top heavy on the IDP, then you kind of don't look at the people who would benefit the most out of the program. And when you have 2 managers and 2 supervisors, those people are, they coexist a whole lot more than the employee staffing. So when we say it's an employee base, I mean, we need to kind of consider that we have more, regular or without saying lower level individuals.
Would it make sense to have 4 staff employees?
I would rather have 4 staff employees and 4 people in management to equal off and balance off the whole situation. Agreeing with what he was saying as far as the essays, anything I've seen as far as the essay is concerned, they're great to have, and I think they're the best thing in the world to do. Problem is, people don't like doing essays. So I'm not saying deter away from it, but let's make sure we have an essay that's worthwhile, where a person will put the effort toward doing it. Don't let, let's be very touchy on the topic we try to discuss when we're talking about doing essays.
Right. And I think the benefit of those specific questions that Sheila and I worked on, and also drew on from what the angle APTA was going after when they did theirs, is that these questions actually enlighten CAT and the employee to some degree as to why they're even wanting to do this. Everybody wants to develop, and everybody wants to learn, everybody wants to do certain things. When you get somebody to sit down and say, well, what do you see yourself as your career, and how do you see yourself in 5 years, and what do you think it'll help to take to get there? And by answering these questions, kind of solidifies their motive for even doing this in the first place, as opposed to questions that may not be related. It's specifically related to them and CAT. So I think it's the best of both worlds.
I guess I'm not objecting to the essay at all. And I think it has that extra effort that shows they're interested. I was thinking more in terms of the broader program. I mean, maybe it starts with someone doing a data entry of an essay they sat home and read, but it becomes part of a tracking record of how many things that they've done, and so that you've got an individual IDP tracking record assessment folder, whatever, for anybody that's decided to sign up for this. One of the things that I think you could also make a component of this would be someone that wants to take a training that's got a cost associated with it. One of the questions I would ask is, well, how much effort have they made on non-cost associated training? If someone's gone through several other things and they've shown a real enthusiasm for doing this, I would be much more inclined to support, sending them somewhere for a training than someone that has never done anything until they want to go off on a training trip.
Right.
And are there any other factors that weigh into it? I mean, we see the factors up here, but are there any other disciplinary track? What other factors weigh into this whole process too? Because I don't want nobody punished because they may have had disciplinary track 2 years ago and they're an outstanding person now. I mean, I don't want them punished because of their history.
Those are the procedures and processes we would like for the committee to come up with.
Okay, I got you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? I think it's a good. I think it's a good start.
Good start.
I think it's
Sheila,
another thing that's overdue.
Did you ask the county if they had anything like this that we could maybe mirror or jump on?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, the county does not offer an official employee development and training program. However, they do offer exactly the way we've handled it in the past, various types of ongoing training opportunities. The one that was of most interest to me was they offer lunch and learns, and we've thought about lunch and learns at CAT before, but most of the time they're exactly what they say. They're held during lunchtime, and many of our employees are not there during lunchtime. So I am talking with the county on how we could possibly develop something along those lines, but for our employees.
To Jay's point about the committee, I'm not sure you need 2 management and 2 supervisors, 1 management, 1 supervisor, and then 4.
I would agree with that too.
4 staff people might be the way you really want, since the focus really is
On employee development.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You don't want the committee to get big.
True.
All right, I think we can begin to pick up a little speed now. We're moving on to our action. So, insurance.
Alright, so Seacrest is here to do a presentation on property and casualty insurance. I'm gonna pull that up.
Good morning, or I guess I should say afternoon, and
Right.
we'll try to move through this very quickly. I'm Cindy Robinette. I'm with Seacrest Partners and have the pleasure of serving as CAT's insurance advisor. As we're getting this presentation up, I'll introduce a couple of my members of my team. Jenny Osaka, sitting over there in the corner. She works with me on the day-to-day placement of the insurance and management programs, and then Cliff McCurry to my left works in a supervisory capacity, making sure that we're delivering upon the promises that we make to Chatham Area Transit. So what we have for you this morning is the results of our insurance renewal negotiations. The programs will, upon your vote, will be effective July 1. So the first piece of that, if you go to this, we'll go through each of the major programs that are renewing quickly. Just please stop me if you have questions. Property insurance. Good news here, the insurance market overall is very stable. Even after the hurricane and some significant losses with Matthew, there was quite a bit of capacity overall in the insurance industry. So we were pleased to achieve a flat rate upon renewal from the property insurer, which is Axis. We did go out into the marketplace to secure bids from a number of different insurance companies, and you see those key ones noted at the bottom. At the end of the day, after reviewing all the proposals, Axis came back with the best overall program in terms of the premium, the rate, and the coverage terms and conditions. There is a premium increase associated with the renewal solely because the values, which are on the first line up there, went up from $22.8 million to $26.4 million. But the rate upon which the insurance carrier applies the premiums remain flat. All right, the next piece is the general liability and commercial auto. Unfortunately, the casualty markets, auto in particular, is not as stable as the property market, although we did achieve a relatively stable renewal for you this year. The auto industry in general has experienced 6 years of underwriting, poor underwriting results, underwriting losses, and Georgia is at the top of the list as far as increases in severity of auto and frequency of auto accidents and injuries. So we have put up there just, you can see a snapshot of CAT's loss history, which actually, based upon the sizes of the fleet, is reasonable. You'll see each year going back from 13 to this year, a pretty steady number of claims that have been reported. The next column are reserves. Those are amounts that are outstanding on claims that have been made, that are that the claim adjuster estimates future costs to be paid. And you'll see your total paid in the fourth column over. You add the paid and reserve to get the total incurred. So year over year, the experience other than 1 year has been relatively steady, and there was a significant loss in one of the years. And the underwriters look at that information when they go to price your program. So next slide, please. As far as your renewal is concerned, we went to a number of different insurance companies, given your loss information, your fleet information, to obtain results. And once again, your incumbent insurance carrier, RLI, offer the most competitive proposal. There was a slight rate increase. However, there were some units that were taken off of the fleet because they're inactive and just used for parts. So the premium, if you would go to the next page, the premium for the auto liability only went up slightly. And there you'll see the general liability, premises liability operations. The insurance premium from last year to this year is relatively flat. Auto up just a touch. There is another coverage that is provided under the auto program for catastrophe losses, and that relates to certain designated perils such as fire, explosion, that could impact a large number of your vehicles from a catastrophe level. CAT has $11 million in insurance coverage for physical damage for a major catastrophe involving multiple units at one time. That is that premium remained relatively flat. I will say that CAT management is looking at this coverage, and is it sufficient for one thing to cover all of the vehicles that we have on an actual cash value basis? We have about $26 million in values, and this provides a little bit less than half that limit. We have gone out into the market to seek additional quotes, but that's something currently under evaluation. And as far as the private passenger physical damage, premium down just slightly. The other major area of coverage, workers' compensation, market competitive. At CAT's renewal, the insurance carrier is Amerisure, and they've offered a very competitive renewal with the payroll's up slightly, but the program premium is only up a few $1,000s. There is a deductible, large deductible under the workers' compensation program of $300,000 per claim and $650,000 in the aggregate. That remains the same for the 2017 renewal. And again, you'll see the premium, that is your fixed cost of your premium for the excess insurance coverage as well as the claims handling. There are other companies that we went to secure quotes and other structures as well, from fully insured programs without a deductible to evaluating qualified self-insurance. But at the end of the day, the option that was most competitive was the large deductible option from Amerisure. This is just a snapshot of the workers' compensation 4-year loss history. And as you'll see, the number of claims have remained fairly steady. The losses paid for each year reasonable based on this size of organization. And in 2 years, all claims that were open have been closed. We do have some outstanding reserves on open cases in the 14-15 year and in the current year as well. But overall, loss history is quite favorable. There are only 4 losses in this history that are over $50,000 on a per claim basis. And I will say that CAT has aggressive claims management and does an excellent job in getting accidents reported in and then handled very quickly, because the longer it takes to know about something, the more a claim will cost you. So you'll see in looking at the reporting, over 90% of claims are reported within 5 days of the accident. And CAT works really hard to manage the cost and to get the employee taken care of and back to work as soon as possible. And this is a snapshot, and I apologize for the size, but these are the recommended insurance programs for the renewal. Again, we spoke about the property, the general liability, auto, and work comp. The last piece is the public officials management liability, as well as employment practices liability. That program is a much smaller premium item that came in flat. It provides $2 million in limits for management liability and employment-related litigation, and that coverage is with Chubb, and also known as ACE. They acquired ACE about a year ago. So overall, the insurance premiums are relatively flat, a total of 4% for that increase, but that also includes exposure increases as well. And then the last page, just other coverage considerations that we like to bring to your attention and something that management looks at each year to determine whether additional coverage should be procured. Privacy, security, liability, that was brought up with a mobile app. Right now, CAT doesn't purchase coverage for privacy breach. There are insurance products available to cover the financial cost of notification, monitoring, or any litigation, as well as regulatory fines and penalties that could result in the event of a breach. And that's something that continues to be looked at. We also have, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. We also have available additional limits of insurance that should you all want higher limits, we certainly can go out and secure those at any time. Additional premium would be required. Crime, employee dishonesty coverage is something that's available in the marketplace should you look to purchase that. And then there's a growing market, unfortunately, for terrorism, including chemical and biological attacks. Your programs have coverage for terrorism that is certified by the federal government as a terrorist act. But some of the smaller things that happen around that cause property damage or could cause people not to want to get on a bus or a transit system because of a violent or malicious act, those types of activities are typically excluded in your property, business interruption, and liability program. So there's a whole market around terrorism, violent, malicious acts that we certainly look at from time to time. With that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those on.
No, I've got a question. The information security, so would that have to do with, like, if there were credit card numbers that were given out and...
That's exactly right. A breach of personal financial information, or it could be health information, but it certainly could be a credit card breach, any type of data breach. It could be paper records that were used in a way they shouldn't have been used as well.
And then back to the previous slide, the personal officials in EPO?
Yes.
Is that like directors and officers?
That's right, directors and officers liability management for management acts, but it's called public officials liability.
Okay.
And then the EPL is an acronym for employment practices liability, which would cover claims for discrimination, wrongful termination, harassment, those types of allegations, providing defense costs as well as payment in the event of a judgment.
Coverage on the IT stuff, the information that might be compromised. On a slightly different note, considering some recent things that happened, do we have some sort of protection for something like ransomware?
That would be the subject of that privacy and security liability insurance, and it would cover issues such as ransomware and cyber extortion, those types of things.
But we don't have that.
You don't have it currently.
So Terry, are we in our budget with this?
We are very close in aggregate. We budgeted a 3% increase on all of these types of insurances and have gained some pickup on others. So this doesn't pose, this 4% increase will not put us back in budget. We're good on the premiums for all insurance carriers for our next year's budget. Give or take, the reserve and deductible payments, which varies based on occurrence and degree of payout required. That's the claims paid piece of the insurance that's not covered by the premium.
One more question, and this may be getting too much in the weeds to be able to answer the question now, but one of the things I was just reading the other day is the WannaCry app that was created for all the ransomware issues internationally. One cyber expert on this has discovered hidden in a lot of that is actually a bigger threat, and that a lot of employee access has been compromised, so that where everybody's worrying about the ransomware, the real issue is the ability to take some employee's access capability and go into a system. Is that protected in what we have now, or would that also be part of the cyber security, cyber exposure?
Yeah, the cost to restore and everything else, that would also be something.
Well, I'm not even thinking in terms of storing something, but just the WannaCry was actually masking someone taking employee data and being able to use that employee data to get into the system and do things within the system.
Yes, that is something that would be subject to that coverage. We don't currently.
And we don't have that.
Where I was going with the question to Terry is, did we have enough money to cover something like this in the budget? So I think this is a growing risk.
It sounds like the quote we're getting right now is a little above where we are with manageable. So if we wanted this additional coverage, we're looking at finding more money to do something.
Have to find the funding.
If it's not budgeted.
And CAT staff and the board have always wanted as much insurance as we could afford to protect against these losses. Next year we'll bring the first year that we got a chance from the beginning for a balanced budget, and with that financial stability will allow us to consider insurance opportunities over and above what we felt like we could afford in prior years. So we can't really afford it this year unless you want to risk the budget, but we'll be on stronger ground next year to look at these types of coverage.
I think when our app goes live, we should talk about this again.
And there's some.
I think this is going to put us in a new level of risk.
There's some security and measures involved in the AT&T contracts and in our IT system that protects us from a lot of this. It's not like we're completely unprotected, but it's never a bad thing to consider the cost benefit of additional risk against loss.
Because nothing's foolproof.
Yes.
So maybe you can bring this forward to us when when the app becomes closer to Main Street.
Yes. And we get in the first couple of months of the year and know where our monthly operating costs are going to be, what we feel like we're going to end up needing month to month. It would be a better time than now. I couldn't really recommend spending any more money right now.
I see we go into other coverage considerations. Is there anything that we can look at? I mean, I guess you don't have to do this today. That we can look at dealing with the coverage you're already getting to, I guess, reduce those rates and being more proactive, I guess, for the next year. I understand we drive better, it's going to be better, but I mean, is there anything we can do? Can you come up with a list of things we can do? Maybe I should say that.
Well, and a lot of it is managing the claims, which you're doing very well, but you don't want to buy insurance at a lower level than where your average claims cost.
I don't want to reduce anything, but I guess, is there anything we can do proactively for the next year as an organization to actually, we're a good faith type thing?
In addition to what you're already doing, there's nothing that I can identify. I think you are doing everything that you're doing. And the ability that we have to go out and secure bids from multiple insurance companies, and there were several this year that didn't quote, that said give us one more year of good losses, and then we'll be able to come in. So I think, given this year, if we're able to manage and control the claims costs, then we'll be able to go out and secure additional options and keep fine-tuning those numbers.
And I did see one or two said, make sure you consider us in 2018, so I did see that.
And self-insurance is always one of the more attractive alternatives when you're looking at cost. And as we continue to build some type of reserve, then we'll be able to look at those. The CAT staff and Seacrest look at those options every year, but with no cash reserves, it's impossible to look at them as realistic. It takes millions to be able to self-fund a workers' comp program or any of the other insurance programs.
And that's a very good point, because to be able to lower your fixed costs means taking on more risk, but without the reserves.
And then there are programs that, for safety reasons or something like that, then you could help somebody on your staff or get something that would help us, say, for the employees, maybe in a certain division or whatever it might be, so that they could be more cautious and more effective and do the things that help prevent things.
Absolutely, and you guys are already doing a really good job with that, but we do have also a wealth of resources and safety training videos and different types of programs that we work with Erica and her team that are available to go forward. And then we also have a full-time claims and risk control advocate that will be working with the Transit Authority to identify different initiatives in areas where we might be able to make a difference in managing those cases.
Yeah, thank you.
Wayne?
I move that we authorize staff to bind coverage as recommended.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up, Curtis, procurement policy revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff request board approve revisions to our current procurement policy and procedures manual. These are based on recommendations from the Federal Transportation Administration through our training and review. In your packet, you will see a highlighted version in the front of what was actually changed and where it was changed, along with the entire manual itself.
This is unchanged from what you gave us at the committee meetings.
That is correct.
So unless we have more discussion on this, we need a
I'll
motion?
make the motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The AT&T contract with Curtis. I think we lost it.
Staff requests board approve the renewal of our contracts with AT&T for system connectivity, including site-to-site internet and cybersecurity services. And within this renewal, we have added the enhancements to our current bandwidth so that we support CAT phone app. Obviously, there's additional cost to that. Total package $185,000. The enhancements are $37,000. As per staff policy, anything above $20,000 requires board approval. Staff is the board to consider and approve this renewal for AT&T.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then last but not least is the 170X. Oh, I'm sorry, the resource allocation policy.
Staff requests the board to adopt a proposed resource allocation to other agencies and non-for-profit organizations policy. That's a mouthful. As you're aware, the staff proposed this policy last month and asked the board to review and chime in on it, and we've pretty much modified ours according to what the county has. And so this is the actual formal policy in your board packet.
So I take it you took the input from the board members to see which non-for-profits they thought were.
What we did was we built a foundational policy on which we can then move forward and decide how resources are allocated. In this year's budget, we put $10,000. But what we did was we didn't really have a policy as to picking and choosing.
I mean, we were spending a lot more.
Absolutely.
And
So
I'm
we
glad
felt
this has been shaved down, but my question is, how will these agencies be, who's gonna make that decision?
I actually had the same question when I looked at the policy. So who makes the decision?
staff will make the decision based upon the policy.
Okay. Okay.
And will that information be shared with the board?
Absolutely. Any information that the board asks for, we share.
Well, I think it's important that we know.
What we're sponsoring.
Right.
Right.
I really do.
And it's important to have a framework within choosing who and what and how to sponsor.
Right.
And then it's something that's really important, and I'll bring it to the board before going any further with it.
According to this, you don't have to do that.
The annual budget for this account is usually displayed in all of our budget workshops, and the discussions occur there as to the amount and the particular intent. So the board can look at it before the year
Right.
And when you approve and adopt the budget, that piece of it is incorporated into it. This policy only allows for us to implement that process. We're gonna bring it to you with the budget. When you adopt the budget, you set the guideline.
Okay, so
If that helps.
for this year, we have adopted a budget. It was
$10,000.
$10,000. Who are we allocating the $10,000 to?
I don't
Do we
have
know?
the detailed list. I can pull it from the workshop slides, what makes that amount up.
I think it's important. that
I'm
the
not
board-
in favor unless we're gonna have a detailed list of what's going on. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
The budget is where the details is approved. The policy is an overall guidance document, but we can postpone until further input gets the policy where the board will.
Did we designate specific recipients for that $10,000? Because I don't remember doing that.
So that's the question at hand. What is the $10,000 going to go to this year?
We had the proposed budget list in the
Yeah,
workshop,
but it
and
was
I don't
huge.
remember. I don't remember.
It
the
was,
list.
I mean, there was a list, I saw it.
Yeah, this is to have a framework for within how we.
Well, no, I understand that, but I guess the conversation here is who's going to decide who gets that $10,000?
We can certainly table this and provide more information if the board wants to move in that direction.
It sounds to me like the board wants to make a decision about how the money's spent.
Well, there was a suggested list, I saw it.
For the 10,000?
The list I remember seeing was the list of what we had been spending.
Yeah, that's the one I remember.
That's the one, but then I thought that, didn't we weigh in on comments about each of these organizations?
And how it benefited CAD
Yeah.
strategically, et cetera, et cetera.
I remember that. But what you're saying is what the final product is.
Right, what the final allocation
For fiscal year 2018.
Yeah. I would like to propose maybe we table this till next,
no
next
problem.
one, and
I'll make the
we come
motion
back
to
with the,
table.
I'll second that.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now let's have the others.
All right, staff request board approval for discontinuation of the 170X, which is otherwise known as the University Express, which currently runs Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, predominantly a express type service geared towards SSU students. The board has been given data and information regarding that. A Title VI analysis has been done, which is attached to this, and we'll entertain any questions the board may have with regards to discontinuation.
We have one in our committee meeting. We talked about trying to do something to assist students getting to the regular bus stop out at LaRoche, or where are we on that? Is that going to be a request coming forward to the city, or is that something that we're going to mention to me casually for me to go fix, or what's the?
Our goal is to work with Savannah State as well as the city of Savannah to establish improved lighting. I believe a crosswalk has already been designated, but there needs to be improved lighting. Right now, the University Express service does not operate in the evening times after 8 o'clock, but the other routes do. So we will certainly be approaching the city with regards to how we can partner together to get some improved lighting for that.
So that's something that you will bring to the city formally?
Yes.
So the idea is to improve the existing stops.
Right. So we already have service that it's redundant service.
Right.
So we already have service, but that service goes till late in the evening, midnight.
Right.
So
Right.
the thought is if students are going to access the service that late, that there should be an adequate lighting around the area where they would wait for the bus.
Yeah.
And there is some lighting, but it's in our opinion not what it could be. And so we would hope to partner with SSU and the city to see what we can do to improve that for the students.
Right. So there was discussion in my committee meeting, I think, about improving the amenities.
Yes.
There on Skidaway and Fowler.
Yes.
Okay.
And the amenities certainly is in our realm of what we can do, but the lighting is something the city
Oh, I
has
see.
to do.
Oh, I see, okay.
I have a question. Purposes of dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's for Title VI compliance. I note that the public meetings that were held, one is apparently, it says it was held Wednesday, May the 10th, and the second one was held Thursday, May the 8th, and that doesn't compute.
How's that possible?
And I just the purpose of having it.
Okay, sorry.
So there's a typo?
I'll
Yes,
correct that.
there's June.
Yeah, I saw another typo in there. I'll correct that.
Okay.
Any other comments? Any other questions? We've talked about this a lot at committee meetings, so I think we've,
Move to discontinue the 178 service.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So Curtis, I'm gonna suggest that we do the executive director's report, and then we'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay. This deals with data. Do you want us to take a break now? It's up to you.
Does anybody need a break?
Okay, I'll go through
Okay,
it.
keep going.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the executive director's report is in your packet, and we'll take any questions you may have. As far as our key performance indicators go on an annual basis, for the FY17 average compared to 16, we still have one more month in this current cycle to report to the board. But there are some areas where we're very close and some areas where we're a little farther apart. Preventable accidents is the biggest one where we're to the good far apart. As you know, we just talked about insurance and everything is preventing CAT involved in a preventable accident, and our operators driving safely and having a good safety culture is contributed to a bottom line that we don't know because we didn't have those big accidents, but certainly is a positive effect to CAT's financial position when we drive safely. Yes, sir.
One thing, I don't know if it's proper time or not, but it's good that our attorneys, the city attorneys, filed that they were not responsible for that accident that happened on the river.
Yeah, that's not really pertaining to this report.
No, but I didn't see it here unless I missed it. I just wanted to.
That's still an ongoing litigation right now.
Okay.
Pete, you through?
Yeah.
Okay, Helen, the floor is yours.
Just, I'm hoping with the app and the origin destination study and everything, it really concerns me that, we're still looking at figures that are down from last year, each month, and I really commend the board and more so the staff, I guess, for trying to look at alternatives to what we need to do to get Chatham area transit more productive, but I don't know, I'm just very alarmed that we can't seem to get our ridership going up.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say that, it concerns me greatly, and I'm concerned about it.
And it would be certainly nice if we were able to make decisions and change things quickly, but unfortunately with the
I understand.
studies and
It's just an
regulations,
observation that you kind of get excited about some of the new things that are going on, and then you read the report and you go, it's still down.
Yeah, that's something we've been looking at, for probably a year and a half. Just looking ridership and the like, but the transit system's a big ship to turn around.
It is, but I just hope that we can start to see some changes in these numbers.
And the move we're making as far as looking at our entire system, there's really a handful of agencies across the country that are making that broad of a move. At some point where we are seeing more and more because of the archaic nature of how these lines were set up with any agency years ago. And I believe one to point out, Houston, who transformed their whole system, they're one of 3, I think, agencies in the entire country that are seeing a positive ridership, which could be directly related to transforming their system. So that's obviously our goal.
I guess when I look at, you know, out of our 16 key routes, if 11 of them are down, and I'm going into the next section, but you know, it's just, it troubles me and I'm glad we're doing what we're doing, and I hope a year from now to have some different data if we can get these routes straightened out. But I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that these are what the numbers are saying, and that's all.
I mean, I appreciate the board making those moves and approving those expenditures for the software and the study and everything like that, because a lot of times people are hesitant to make drastic moves like that, but we saw it coming, and decisions were made, and these decisions are going to allow us to have the tools and the information necessary to make proactive changes, as opposed to 3 years from now.
It's going to be interesting too, you know, if we do, you know, move to the whole county-wide scenario, you know, that's going to be an interesting, you know, change in fair, you know, it's going to just change the whole landscape, and it's going to be difficult to compare sort of where we've been with where we.
Well, and as Commissioner Jones pointed out, that things are changing, demographics are changing, and CAT needs to change with that.
Yeah.
And so it's something that needed to be done.
Chris, I had a comment on page 4 before you change sections with the new claims for general liability.
Are we in,
go back to
unit updates?
No, we're still in your record report. Where it looks like we've had somebody trip and fall on the sidewalk and injured their knees on a bolt.
Oh, I only have 2 days. Okay. Are you talking about the service delivery update?
No, I think I'm still in the sector report.
That's it.
Okay, service delivery.
So you want to stick on that? What was your question?
Okay, we've been talking now a lot about sidewalks, passenger amenities.
Yes, sir.
Access. And here we've got another case of somebody that's stripped on the sidewalk and has filed a claim because of hurt himself.
Yes, sir.
From the bolt sticking out. I just want to keep our awareness on this. So we need to be talking, and I assume this is probably within the city if it involves a sidewalk. So who is responsible for something like this, us or the city? And how can we work with the city, Bill, to get rid of these things? Because if we got a bolt sticking up, somebody's going to trip on it.
Well, you're talking about when somebody from CAT removes the shelter.
Or, I don't know if it's somebody that can't remove a shelter, or if there was just something in general about a sidewalk. They're making a general comment about the state of our sidewalks. So
It's a general sidewalk issue that the city is probably going to wind up involved. It looks like this was very specifically a CAT shelter was removed and a screw.
And there are other situations where this sidewalk does pose an issue, and I think next month we're going to have a presentation on our passenger amenities program, and a lot of the stops we're trying to get pictures of as well. But the broader question to your point is that working with the city and the county to look at all the areas, the approach to our shelters and our bus stops is also something that's very important. I mean, you can have an ADA compliant bus stop, but if the approach to it is not ADA, they can't even get to it. This is an elephant in the room because it's a lot of area and it's a lot of money. And so, but the only way we're going to actually fix this is if we start talking about it and start moving some money towards it with a plan and an action plan and a goal of at some point we'll rectify all these situations.
Well, one thing, just to maybe Grant needs to kind of make a note of this in the back of his mind. When we set up our strategic priorities moving forward, one of those is for every major road in town to have a sidewalk on at least one side of the street. And a lot of places where that doesn't exist now. So as we move forward, that's one of the things that we should address as anytime we start installing anything like that, we should make sure that we're working in conjunction with CAT anywhere there might be a stop for ADA, as well as just how we put that amenity in conjunction with the sidewalk anyway.
Yeah, and the benefit of working with the city and the county when they do improvements is we can use those improvements as in-kind match to the grant money we draw, so there's no actual cash outlay by CAT.
Not only that, but utility companies, whenever they dig up the sidewalk, we want to make sure that they're making the improvements. So not just the city or the county.
Right.
Okay, any more service and delivery system development? We move to finance.
Sure. So through the first 11 months, our operating revenue over expenditures is on budget. We are 30,000 better month to date and right at 377,000 ahead of budget year to date. We expect that trend to continue over the last 30 operating days. So our projection and our year-to-date number is right at the same. The full financial picture, you still need to look at the balance sheet, which shows a negative cash position and an additional 1.4 in expenses that we're trying to make. So
Those vendor expenses?
Vendor expenses, yes ma'am. So when you look at all three, the cash flow summary, the balance sheet, and the operating income statement, things are on trend and are consistent. We will meet budget, but we still have a critical cash requirement shortage. And that will continue until the cash will be realized from, good news, the county has approved our requested millage increase. So cash will be tight through the first 5 months of the fiscal year. Most taxpayers pay their taxes in November, and we receive that money in December. Through continued cost containment, revenue enhancement, we'll make it through the next 5 months. And for the first time, we will start our fiscal year even instead of $1.5 to $2 million in the hole on budget. We won't have to find the $1 million for our debt payment and find the operating expenses. So it's while it's not extra money we got, it's money we surely needed to begin to build a reserve and be stable.
Good.
Notwithstanding, we're looking for that gap in the county still on the paratransit.
We are hoping, yes, that piece will make the cash situation a lot less critical, and we're still working with the county in order to receive a payment for paratransit service ran this year that is cost more than the fee they pay.
And what are their comments at this point?
They've continued to say they're looking to see if they can find money to do that. But the fact of the matter is we ran a certain amount of hours of paratransit, and the money that the county has paid has not met that cost.
I understand that. I mean, I know they have going forward. I know they have, it's in the budget going forward, but I mean, I find this unfair that they're not paying their past due bill.
Right.
It is not an actual bill. It's the difference between the fee they pay
and the cost.
Yeah.
To me, that's
right.
It's a bill.
It's
Same
a
thing.
bill. It's money
Right.
owed,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's going to end the year at around $954,000.
Which CAT needs.
Which CAT has already paid on behalf of the
That's
county.
my point.
Yes. So we have been working with county staff as early as last July, but most recently monthly since February to discuss the costs, the discrepancies, and plans.
But to answer your question, we've not received any indication from the county
All right,
that they're going to pay us.
I mean,
they're going to pay.
as a suggestion, do you all need to like give them a time frame of?
Should we send them a bill?
Yeah. I
Why don't
mean,
we send them a bill?
that's what
We did initially in February, and they refused to pay it.
So
We
that's-
could do it outside of the normal monthly paratransit billing and not risk.
What happened was we
operating
included it
costs.
in the bill for our normal paratransit, and they said they weren't going to pay it, so we risked losing our normal paratransit for that month, so we had to rebill them for that month, and so that's how they didn't pay the bill
It's
that we
not
owed us
right.
past due.
That's just not right. And you'd be you sent a letter to our chairman or anything to that effect?
I think Mr. Lynch
I've met with the county manager, and Chairman French has met with the county commission chairman.
I mean, they know. The county knows
But they've gotta pay it.
but they're not.
Well,
So
I guess that's the question I was trying to ask the other day, is what is the or else? Because even suggesting that if they don't pay it, we go back to the 3/4 of a mile, that's the service going forward that they're committed to paying for going forward. That doesn't save us the $1 million that we're owed somehow.
Right.
It doesn't recoup the money. So the real issue is what is our or else? What can we do to recoup that money?
We could cut fixed route service until we make up that amount.
Then could a letter to that effect go to our chairman to say
Emails have already gone, there's been documentation, we've already done all that.
I mean,
We've
this is
already
just-
said we were gonna do that if we need to. It's time to either for them to pay it or for us to take action. I don't think additional documentation is gonna matter.
And a definite answer, yes, we're gonna pay it, or no, we're not, will allow
That would
this
go
board-
a long way.
this
Saying
board
they will
to
pay
make a
it.
decision.
The only, based on answers that we've gotten, confusing answers we've gotten in the past, the only definitive answer is a check.
Yes, I agree.
Right, but we can't even get the answer of we are going to pay it.
Well, but we did.
No.
We did. Early on, we got an answer, we'll pay it. And
No,
then we
we're
got,
looking
well, we
to
don't
see
know
what we
if we're
can
gonna
do
pay
is
it.
what
I mean,
there's-
we've gotten back and forth on that from the initial discussions when this was discovered.
It's not right. They have an obligation, they need to pay it.
And it would get us dead even on our operating payments held due to lack of funding.
Well, let's come up with the right of way to contact them again with a letter of that we need that money to do the things that we have to do, and for that particular service, that it's really, really important that it be done right away. And then James and Helen and Jay can see about that for us, if they don't mind.
I mean, we're fine to send them another letter. I mean, absolutely have no problem with another letter. I have a problem sending them another bill. But for some reason or other, the county is not moving off square one with this.
Well,
And
but I
this has
mean-
been the case for several months now.
I think your idea of if you can't pay your bill, we're gonna have to make it up somewhere, so maybe we'll have to go back to the 3/4 of a mile.
Well,
and-
that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, but it'll save us some money going forward.
Well, what Curtis' suggestion was to reduce some fixed route service. But to do that, even to recoup that $1 million, we're back in the Title VI situation.
Well, I understand, I mean, I'm more.
Unless we shave less than 25% from routes, so we don't have to do a Title VI.
But it would seem to me, since that comes from paratransit, if you're gonna shave anything, it should be paratransit.
You legally cannot shave paratransit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the difference between countywide and the mandated 3/4 of a mile equates to right at $200,000 a year in cost for the cost calculations, so.
It was just a thought.
Yeah.
That
It takes
was
5
a
years.
thought that since that's where the service.
It would be more of a political thing to cut that, not a huge cost savings. So the 3/4.
Well, it just
If you
isn't
could
right.
calculate then that shaving of service maybe in 2 or 3 places, less than the 25%, then that's something that we could do until the $1 million was recovered, and then we could.
Right, it's unfortunate, well, it's not that simple though, we can't just turn it on, turn it off, we have to go through a schedule changes, a process of, you know, have to let the public know what's going on, we have to do.
Can you say that we will move forward with the procedure to do route reductions?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that it directly affects the public, I mean,
I know.
you know.
It sounds like you're holding the public hostage.
Well, the public is gonna have to put their foot down about
But
it.
the bottom line is, what's not changed is we owe vendors money,
Right.
and the county owes us money, and it's not right for us to pay vendors and not get paid from the county, because we don't have a reserve. We can't tap into a reserve.
Well, but it's money that this organization is owed.
Yes.
And are any of the members receiving no a letter from the vendor that hadn't been paid, any individual member of the board?
I
You?
have, but I've worked with Terry on some of those. So.
And I just got one, I've got to go through it.
It's not wrong.
It's
So let's,
$2,000, I think.
So we'll do another letter and we'll indicate we're going to reduce fixed route service
Right.
as much as possible.
And the other financial, pending question is when the FTA will release a funding notice on the remainder of our 5307 money. So that is a monthly operating cost revenue that we'll do without until they release that funding and we apply for and receive that grant.
Right, so the board remembers the FTA released only a portion of the year of funding to agencies based on the fact that there was no federal budget approved. I believe there was a federal budget extension to the end of their fiscal year, which is September 30th. We're still looking for our remainder of the year apportionment from the FTA as our other agencies. They've indicated that there's a very good chance we're going to get that, but they have no idea when. So we'll continue to work with our state and local resources to see when we can get that money, but we're not the only ones in this situation. Unfortunately, it affects us in a dramatic way since we rely on it so much.
Yeah.
And that's compounded by the $954,000 that we're out of the paratransit. So.
Any other questions on finance before we?
I have one quick question. I thought we were going to maybe do the bus cleaning in-house. Look at doing that.
The bus cleaning?
We are,
already.
that was the last payment held
That
and
was,
released.
Yep, that's done, that contract's been canceled and.
Well, it's on here.
Right.
That's the last paying the rest of our owed money to them.
Last payment.
Yep.
Any other questions? I think we're going to, I'd like to propose we go into executive session at this point to talk about personnel matters.
Before we go into executive section, what are we doing with our 30th year anniversary?
30-year anniversary? Certainly, we can have, Shalonda, do you want to go ahead and update the board on what we've been doing on, what we're doing as far as the 30-year anniversary for CAT?
Of course. Well, the last thing we're just promoting it on social media. We do plan on, with board changes and some of the staff changes we've had, certainly with our new COO, we're going to have a plan for a meeting, so a meet and greet, so that we can have the community and that'll be opportunity for the board members and everyone to kind of meet some of the board members and talk to them, as well as meet our new COO and any other additional staff. So that's kind of our upcoming plan, where we have kind of a large community event where everyone can kind of come out and just enjoy the community and have an opportunity to kind of talk to us and let us know some of their concerns and just celebrate our anniversary.
When does that take place? Any idea?
We're looking probably around August, September timeframe.
I wouldn't be here then.
Well, you will still be
Certainly be
around. I
invited.
want to make sure that you're, I'm sure that Mr. French will want to make sure that you're still involved in that.
What have we done up to this point? This what you just said just now?
Well, that's upcoming. We haven't done anything. We've just, been promoting it. We had an event outside during the winter.
Right.
Probably early February, where, where we gave the customers, cocoa and kind of talked to them and gave them some 30th anniversary. That was actually on the actual observance. Yes, Chairman, at the time, Chairman Caucus was able to participate in that also.
So remaining of the next 6 months, the only thing we're gonna do is what you just.
That's one of the events. We did provide a list early on. I don't have that in it right now, but we do have a few other activities that we are planning.
Are we planning a grand finale to close it out?
I'm not sure, but I'm certain that, budget permits, we can get with staff and find out if that's something that we can do.
What the budget look like?
I'm not sure at this
Tight.
time.
Yeah, very tight. Overall, the budget's tight. There was quite a bit of money put in this event for this fiscal year. I don't remember the amount, Shonda. Didn't we talk about?
Yes, we did.
10 to 12 initially.
That sounds
and
about
then
right.
5 for the ending,
Yes,
something like that?
that sounds right, yes.
Not quite 20, but over 10 was budgeted for the
10.
30. In between 10 and $20,000 was allowed for in this year's marketing budget to promote the anniversary.
And what's your balance, what's the number, you know?
I'm not sure right now because we've certainly cut back a little bit, you know, just considering some of our budget challenges, just to make sure, but we will, plan on having something for the fall. We can kind of come back to the board and just present an update.
Okay.
We ever thought about putting something on our buses, 30th anniversary? We've got a tremendous advertising vehicle in our mainline buses.
It's too quiet.
Nice to see something different.
Anniversary
No, but just,
celebration is too quiet.
Just maybe just put, 30th anniversary, catch a cat,
Yeah.
on the side of the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we could use our buses to do a lot of advertising, like the mobile app that we're gonna launch. I think that'd be a perfect place to introduce it.
The money that was already spent, break it down. No, what I'm saying on it, Howard, is break it down and give it to us. I participated in that situation,
sir.
but I'd like to know, as well as all the board members know, how much money was spent and what area it was spent in.
Okay.
I was outside
Good
giving
idea.
things away and,
Right, and that's not how much we have spent, that's how much we programmed for the entire year's celebration of our 30th anniversary. There's a difference between what we allowed for and what we've spent. We didn't spend $10,000 on cocoa.
Right, but obviously we have cash restraints and things that we're working on.
Maybe you can give us the budget that you got and how much you've already spent and see what's left. And kick around some ideas.
Some
as to
ideas,
what to
yes.
do. Sure.
Howard, did you review all business before the executive session?
Let's do it after.
You got two questions?
But I got two questions.
Three.
I shouldn't say. Who's first?
You can go, Wayne.
Oh, I was just gonna suggest that we use the LED on the front of the bus. We could use that as a means to promote the 30th. I mean, just like we do season's greetings or happy holidays or whatever.
I was gonna suggest that, how the city and the county, do these inserts, and I don't know what it costs, in the newspaper, every year sort of updating folks on things that are going on and the like, and, I've never known us to do anything like that, so a 30th anniversary would be a perfect opportunity to do something like that, particularly given all the interesting things that are going on and, all the projects we have.
Yes, sir.
Two things. I never got any feedback on the rodeo that got canceled a couple of months ago, and so I understand we were in a financial crisis, whatever the case may be, but we have a COO now, so that's going to be very important because I know those questions going to be raised up to me. The other point was we had a gentleman I read in the newspaper. One of our employees, I guess, retired recently and had been here for a long, long time.
Yes, sir.
And I'd never heard anything about that, I guess, from
That's
the board
coming to the
perspective.
board next month.
Okay.
That employee.
I apologize for.
No problem. That employee took his last month of service on vacation. So we will be bringing and recognizing that employee at the board meeting in July.
Because I sir, he had been here for a long time within the catchment.
Yes, sir. And we definitely are going to be recognizing him.
All right, thank you.
They want to bring it back from Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I think, just a little more of what James was asking about the employee rodeo, that's going to be next year, but you're also planning to bring back the big.
Well, rescheduling the
company
meeting as well.
Okay.
Any other questions?